The 24th of September 1923 dawned a normal day in Panjim, Goa, at the height of the Portuguese colonial rule. On that day, the city witnessed a massive congregation of people representing all walks of life, from the elite to the common man. 5,000 people, unprecedented and the largest recorded till date. This wasn't a normal day after all. Was this a boiling over of popular sentiment against the corrupt Portuguese regime? The reason was far more modest: a funeral to pay homage to a true son of Goa.
Unseen crowd of in those days, of all walks of life, poor, middlemen, and rich men, and of all categories of people of the society then.
A former sprightly, firebrand, and now a frail, pious-looking man lay in the coffin. The body was dressed in a bishop's full regalia and belonged to a bishop of the Orthodox Syrian Church based in India. An Orthodox Syrian bishop in Goa? History books tell us there was no Orthodox Syrian church at that point in Goa. What was this bishop doing in Goa, and why was his funeral held here? This is the story of Bishop Mar Alvares Julius, a story of a devout priest, a powerful orator, an agriculturist, a social crusader, educator, philanthropist, a rebel, an outcast. It's also the story of a forgotten saint.
Alvarez was a nationalist. He wanted well-being of the population of Goa, of his people, and their economy to be improved. Okay. You understand? Yeah. Therefore, he even suggested to the people that to cultivate mandioca, because he has expressed that even in 1 hectare of land, mandioca would yield so much more than what paddy would give. He was also a journalist. He had his own printing press and he used to publish many newspapers.
Just off Panjim and across the scenic Mandovi River, atop a small hillock, lies the Orthodox Syrian Church built in 1973. The model remains of Mar Alvares, the Orthodox Syrian followers' first bishop, given the charge of Goa India, and Ceylon, and consecrated by the Orthodox, lies in this church at Ribandar. And for many devotees, common people, and citizens, Bishop Mar Alvares, also known as Padre Alvarez, is more than a bishop. He is a saint. He indeed played many roles to help his people and his faith. Here's the story of Bishop Mar Alvarez. To understand this forgotten saint's past and establish his lineage, we have to travel down to Verna, a prominent village in South Goa. Verna of today is Goa's largest industrial area and hosts to renowned electronics, IT, and pharmaceutical companies. More than a century back, the economy of Verna thrived predominantly on agriculture. It was in this verdant village, steeped in religious fervor, that on April 29, 1836, Antonio Francis Xavier Alvarez was born to José Baptista Alvarez and Marina Expectação Lourenço. The Alvarez household was referred to as Devangar, meaning House of God. That name bore testimony to the innumerable acts of charity performed by the members of that household. Born in a Christian family, Francis Xavier Alvarez was baptized on 6 May 1836 at the Verna Holy Cross Church. It still stands majestically by the main highway connecting North and South Goa.
Father Alvarez his house was next to our house, and this was an open space at that time, and this house was established then in 1925.
Young Francis was then sent to a secondary school in Lutolim in South Goa. After his secondary education, Francis spent the next 6 years from 1853 to 1859 at the Municipal Cemetery in South Goa in preparation for his priesthood. The prestigious and historical Municipal Seminary, established in the year 1609, is one of the oldest seminaries in India. It is a proud remnant of Goa's vibrant religious history. Alvarez was eager to receive the priesthood ordination and serve the people of Goa as a Roman Catholic priest. But he came to the realization that despite Goa's significant Christian population, there was no archbishop assigned to Goa from 1848 to 1862. Francis Alvarez understood that this was unlikely to change for a while, and his desire would have to be fulfilled elsewhere, which led young Francis to sail to Bombay. In Bombay, Francis Alvarez joined the Collegio de Jesuit at Mazagaon, Bombay, an important trading and administrative metropolis of British India in that era. Collegio de Jesuit School was started with blessings from Bishop Hartman of Bombay. Francis hoped and believed that Bishop Hartman would ordain him as a priest. After joining the Collegio de Jesuit, Francis was ordained a priest in 1862 by Bishop Walter Stein of Bombay. For the next 5 years, Father Francis Antonio Xavier Alvarez faithfully served the church. Father Alvarez returned to Goa in 1867, 9 years since he left his hometown. Till 1871, his work was chiefly confined to the church ministry and the apostleship of charity. At some point during 1871, Father Alvarez felt the need to channelize his energy to help the poor, the needy, and the downtrodden in Goa. This seems to have been the driving force for him to also start his first charitable association in Panjim. It is known that through the work of Father Alvarez's charitable association, there was a considerable reduction in the number of wandering beggars in and around Panjim city. The year 1876 was a turning point in Padre Alvarez's life. Attentive to the impact of reaching out to a wider audience, he started contributing articles to an influential weekly magazine called Our Cruz. He went on to become the editor of Our Cruz. His articles were critical of the corrupt Portuguese regime across the board, civil, religious, and the political functioning.
Alvares Julius Metropolitan was a great educationalist. In the name of Mary and Jesus, a school was started. That was in 1877. He was the first director, and he has appointed another 6 teachers. Of course, all 6 were priests only. After becoming a bishop, he started an English medium school. Though he taught Portuguese, Latin, French, English and all, he was so much considering to the mother tongue. He, in his books and other things, he was telling the parents, students, at least at the early stage, their primary education, they should study Kongani.
The year 1876 recorded the deadly cholera, reaching epidemic proportions in Goa.
He used to assist all the sick people, especially when they had cholera, smallpox, and pest, which is plague. Not only by giving medicines, besides giving medicine, he published a booklet to give directions to how to cure the disease.
Father Alvarez treated the suffering victims, sometimes in their own homes and even at his house in Fontanas, the modern-day Latin quarters in Panjim.
Apart from that, this was during the life of the patients. On their death, he used to carry the bodies or dead bodies on their shoulders and take them to the burial, which hardly even any relative was coming forward to do such jobs, because they were thinking that it was a contagious thing, and which was in fact contagious. And all these funerals were taken place during the night time only, which were allowed, not during the daytime.
This was also a time of deep-rooted conflict within the church on account of the twin missions, Padroado Real, which meant the crown patronage of the church, and the Propaganda Fide, which meant propagation of faith. These 2 missions supported an understanding between the Holy See and the colonial rulers in regards to matters of religion and administration.
Colorado mission and propaganda mission both were for the expansion of the Roman Catholic Church. And Colorado mission was under the patronage of the Portuguese regime, and propaganda fide was under the patronage of the Pope of Rome.
In 1880, Archbishop Dom Antonio Sebastian Villante takes charge of Goa.
In the year 1882, Archbishop Dom Villante came to Goa, and he was very arrogant in his nature. So there was lots of problem in Goan jurisdiction. No one was happy with his attitude. Along with this, Bishop Alvares was publishing the periodicals. In his periodicals, he used to publish against Bishop Dom Villante and his jurisdiction.
Archbishop Villante successfully banned our cruise on 27 July 1882. Anticipating such a move, Father Alvarez launched a new magazine, A Verdad, or The Truth. Predictably, the relationship between the Archbishop Villante and Father Alvarez started deteriorating. The years from 1882 to 1887 are one of the personal conflict, anguish, and unsettling questions for Father Alvarez. This upheaval stems from his disillusionment with the Roman Catholic Church.
Even all the published materials were confiscated. People were advised not to read anything whatever he has written. Even he has advised not to attend the masses, Holy Mass celebrated by Father Alvarez.
At this point, there were many independent Catholic missions operating all over South Asia due to the Padroado propaganda conflict. Things had come to head, and during this period, Father Alvarez was excommunicated from the Roman Catholic Church in the last quarter of the 19th century. He was now officially barred from practicing or preaching the faith. In those days, this was a serious retribution. Father Alvarez's calling lay elsewhere. He was in search of a religion which embraced faith as well as welcomed the local populace in its fold. In a most significant development, Father Alvarez got the opportunity to meet Pulicotal Joseph Mar Dionysius II in Ceylon. He was mesmerized by his personality and faith. Thus, Padre Alvarez is introduced to the Orthodox faith. Ever the perfectionist, Father Francis Alvarez immersed himself in studying the Orthodox faith in depth and officially joined the Orthodox Syrian Church in 1887, a watershed event in his life. Father Alvarez continued his mission to spread the faith across Ceylon. He spent 2 years nurturing the Church of Our Lady of Good Death and other churches which he had helped establish in Ceylon. On his journey back to India, Father Alvarez reached Mangalore, a busy and important port on the western coast of India.
While he was about to come to Brahma, before that itself Roman Catholic people conspired with the ship captain
and made him to get down at Mangalore so that they can harass him instead of Malpe, that it is very near to Brahmawar, just 10 kilometers away.
While in Mangalore, he faced pressures while propagating the faith. Unmindful, he continued with his duties and started the Brahmawar mission.
In the year 1889, on Easter Day, Father Noronha celebrated Holy Mass in the church built by the Brahmawar Orthodox community, and hence we get the start of the Brahmawar Orthodox mission.
Father Noronha, a native of Goa, was also excommunicated from the Roman Catholic Church for his support to the Padroado. The teachings of the Orthodox Syrian Church appealed to Father Noronha deeply. Father Alvarez and Father Noronha struck a deep bond. In May 1889, Father Alvarez hands over charge of Brahmawar mission to Father Noronha, a true patriot and his trusted colleague, and proceeds to Kerala. Father Antonio Francis Xavier Alvarez was ordained as a full deacon and then later as a priest by His Grace Mar Gregorios Viji Varghese of Parmala. Father Alvarez was then appointed as the Vicar General of Ceylon. In reverence of his work, Father Alvarez was elevated to Bishop Mar Julius on 29 July 1889 at Old Seminary in Kottayam, Kerala. He was consecrated by the holy bishops Pulikottil Tirumeni, Karavil Tirumeni, Parmala Tirumeni and Paulos Mar Ivanius Tirumeni, all strongholds of the Orthodox Syrian Church. In those days, the Orthodox practice was limited to Kerala, and the Syriac and Malayalam language was used to celebrate Holy Mass in the church.
Barekoi leken shohanon sogudai lam kablil fadrok badmok yakiro lahu soyod hawbe wal shubukono datohe wal galiu safe dakdo maikmoran baloha lawal min.
On being given charge of Ceylon, Goa and India, excluding Kerala, Bishop Mar Julius was even allowed to conduct the masses as per the Latin rites. The next 5 years were the busiest for Bishop Mar Julius. He crisscrossed the 3 regions under his charge, helping build and strengthen the faith. On May 27, 1892, Bishop Julius consecrated a French national, Father René Villate, who joined the Orthodox Indian Church. There were several priests of various nationalities who joined the Orthodox Syrian Church. After serving the faith and discharging his duties across the regions, by the end of 1892, Bishop Alvares Mar Julius returns to Goa. It could be that he had a strong desire to serve his beloved homeland. It was the beginning of the nativity season in Goa, and the people were busy with the Christmas festivities. Meanwhile, Bishop Alvarez had plunged head-on into publishing a new magazine called O Brado Indiano, or The Indian Outcry. The first edition of O Brado Indiano was published on 15 December 1892. It was widely read by the people of Goa. Here was one paper that gave vent to the repressed anger and universal discontent felt by local people towards the Portuguese government. As a true freedom fighter, Bishop Alvares used the newspaper columns to expose the crooked civil administration of the Portuguese government.
He said, "Vipers of my country bite and poison the descendants of these conquerors who have put us to shame." He says, "Long live liberty and independence." So from a certain point of view, they are very politically charged. It's a very politically charged language.
He singled out one of the most corrupt officers of that time, Captain Manuel de Oliveira Gomes da Costa.
It makes it very clear, that it is like a riddle, that I am giving you, this man has done this, this and this. Now you tell me who it is. So that the readers would point out to Gomes da Costa. So it was not naming him, but it was writing all the wrong things he did, arbitrary arrest, corruption, all that. And then the last word said, "Can you tell me who it is?" So that's why the title was a riddle. Now this article was considered to be an insulting article. Naturally it was insulting, but it could not be defamation because Father Alvarez had not put any name. Okay, but it was certainly insulting, but not in the nature of sedition. Okay, and you find 3 weeks later, on 19th August 1895, that is the first arrest after this article. So these are remote causes, but this could be the immediate cause of the arrest.
Not one to be outdone by a minor religious person, Captain Manuel prepares for battle. He lay in wait for an opportunity to clamp down on Bishop Mar Julius. On 19th August 1895, as Bishop Alvarez was traveling in a horse cart from a nearby village of Santa Cruz, a team of policemen waited for him at the Phoenix Fountain. They attacked the socialist and arrested him right away. They then forcefully stripped him of his episcopal vestments. This was only the beginning of the official reprisal. The humiliation continued, and the officers of the law forced Bishop Julius to remove his religious cross and his ring, both which he steadfastly resisted, saying, "You can do so after I'm dead." He was outnumbered, and Bishop was violently overpowered by the policemen who got his religious adornments forcibly removed.
The main reason was this a riddle to be solved, but the reasons given were certain sections of the Portuguese penal code. For example, section 130. It said that those who do not respect Roman Catholic religion and do not practice it should be punished. Section 134 said those who pretend to be Roman Catholics should be punished. Section 135 said that being Catholic and denouncing being Catholic, you have to punish this person. Section 235 said those who publicly wage a war against, those who publicly wear gowns and insignias of, like the Syrian Catholic gown, etc., they should be punished. And throughout the case, one must understand that Father Alvarez is referred to as ex-priest. So the Roman Catholic Church does not accept him to a very large extent. The case, of course, is not filed by the church. It is filed by an individual person, the police. And when we say the police, we say the government, But you find by this time there was a kind of a direct confrontation between the Roman Catholic Church and what Father Alvarez believed in.
The officials were not done yet. In utter humiliation, Bishop Alvarez was paraded naked through the streets of Panjim.
And very surprisingly, there were about 500 people of Fontainebleau who were following him, like cheering him on. and jeering Gomish da Costa. Making fun of Gomish da Costa, but praising Father Alvarez.
To add on to the turmoil, Bishop was then confined to a filthy room without chair, table and bed, and the floor smelled of urine and faces. In spite of the sufferings, he spent the whole night in prayer and reverence. The next day, Bishop Mar Julius was presented in the court. With the backing of Captain Manuel, the administration was prepared. The charge leveled against Bishop Alvares was that of mocking the official dress of a bishop. In those days, only the Portuguese archbishop was authorized to wear prelatic robes. Triumphantly, Bishop Julius produced documentary evidence to the court proving himself a bishop of the Orthodox Church. Matters turned around. The police came under severe criticism from the court, and the judge released Bishop with all due honor. The embarrassment heaped by the court only added fire to Captain Oliveira's hatred towards Bishop Alvarez. He hatched another plan and got Bishop arrested on 21st August 1895, the very next day of his previous troubles with the law. With this second detention, the law officers now threw the entire weight of the rule book at Bishop Mar Julius. The allegation this time was far more serious: sedition.
He who charges Father Alvarez as being seditious. And the Portuguese word used by him is sedição nativista. That means sedition from a native point, from a native. Okay. Now, from his point of view, the sedition was for certain reasons, and the reasons that were used were inciting the people to fight for liberation, discrediting the Portuguese, insulting government officials. Now, these are hardly any reasons which we would consider to be seditious in nature, but these were the reasons given.
Under such a serious charge, the officials knew that no offender could possibly afford the bail amount. But a prominent lawyer of the court paid the bail amount of Rs 5,000 and got Bishop released.
This case, of course, was considered not to be seditious. Obviously, the reasons cited were not waging a war against the government. It was not violence against the government. That is the actual meaning of sedition, which was not a part of the charges.
The jury cleared Bishop Julius of all allegations of sedition.
In 1895, you have lot of happenings. In August, you have the sedition case. In September, you have the Maratha Sepoy Mutiny. In October of the same year, you have the Dada Rani revolt. So, in the same year, it was a year of uprisings, year of revolts. So, certainly, and at that time, this Dada Rani revolt, it was not, all this time the British and the Portuguese were brothers in arms. When I went to the British Library in London and checked the records of the British residents, one of the residents has written a letter that now the Portuguese can look after themselves. Now the British, there's no need to send our soldiers to Goa to defend the Portuguese against the revolts. So by this time, the British had to a very large extent stopped sending their sepoys.
Dada Rani revolt and the mutiny by the sepoys posted to Mozambique in the year 1895 forced the Portuguese to adopt draconian measures of arresting and harassing the suspects. During this time, the press stood banned. With the continuing persecution and a potential threat to his life, Bishop Alvarez had little option but to leave Goa. He travelled 45 miles through the forest of Kankan to reach Karwar and then to Brahmawar in Karnataka. He travelled to other parts of South India and Ceylon to continue his missionary work. In October 1910, the Portuguese royal rule in Lisbon was brought to an end and the country became a republic. Along with other Portuguese colonies, Goa also benefited from this change of dynastic rule.
In 1910, the constitutional monarchy changed to a republic, where there was no king. It was a republic. The people elected their government. Now with this, there were winds of change, where the Hindus who were for so many centuries treated as second-class citizens were now treated as equal citizens, where people from all religions were given government jobs. There was freedom of religion. People were allowed to practice, preach and propagate their own religion. In the previous centuries, you found people running away from Goa in order to protect their faith, running away with the deities, with their gods. So there was no freedom of religion. But after 1910, there was total freedom of religion.
Meanwhile, Bishop Alvarez continued his spiritual work. He consecrated Father Kanyandra, Father Koshi and others to serve the Brahmawar mission. This period also witnessed rumblings within the Orthodox Church itself. On 8 June 1911, the Patriarch excommunicated Vattasharal Tirumeni. Bishop Julius and many other bishops in turn declared their support to Vattasharal Tirumeni. Bishop Mar Alvares Julius' sole desire was, "I want to die in my motherland, where I'm hated, among those who don't remember my kindness. My bones too should be here." He eventually left for Goan shores in the year 1912. Though he was 76 years old, yet his urge to serve the poor was still alive and unflinched. For the rest of his life, Bishop Alvarez lived for the poor and the downtrodden, where his house was heaven for the poor. In spite of his deteriorating health, he was often seen on the streets of Panjim with the help of a walking stick, collecting alms to serve the poor.
And he started begging, not for his survival, but for the poor. Once a person spit at his begging bowl, and in turn he said, "That's for me, but give something for the poor." This is a charismatic person who was courageous enough to face challenges of various kinds.
In the first week of September 1923, Bishop Alvares Mar Julius was suffering from dysentery, which left him very feeble and weak. It is known that an aged poor lady took care of him, but his condition gradually worsened. Bishop Alvarez needed medical attention immediately, and he was finally taken to the charitable hospital at Ribandar by his friends.
തിരുമേനി റൈബന്ദർ ഹോസ്പിറ്റലിൽ അഡ്മിറ്റായിരിക്കുമ്പം തന്നെ തിരുമേനി വീണ്ടും കാത്തലിക് സഭയിലേക്ക് തിരിച്ചു ചേരാൻ കാരണം തിരുമേനിക്ക് യാതൊരു സപ്പോർട്ടും കൂടെ ഇല്ലാഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ട് തിരിച്ചു ചേരാനായിട്ട് അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ സ്നേഹിതർ പലരും അദ്ദേഹത്തെ ഉപദേശിച്ചു. ആ സമയത്ത് അദ്ദേഹം അതിന് സമ്മതിച്ചില്ല. മാത്രമല്ല ഇവരോട് പറഞ്ഞു, ഞാൻ മരിക്കുമ്പോൾ എൻ്റെ സഭയപ്പെട്ട വൈദികരാരെങ്കിലും വരികയാണെങ്കിൽ അവരെ കൊണ്ടടക്കുക, ഇല്ലെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾ അടക്കിയാൽ മതി, അതുകൊണ്ട് നിങ്ങൾ അതേപ്പറ്റി ഭാരപ്പെടേണ്ട എന്ന് തിരുമേനി കൽപ്പിക്കുകയും ചെയ്തു.
On 23rd September 1923, Bishop Alvares Mar Julius took his last breath in the general ward of the charitable hospital at Ribandar, Goa. Aware of his popularity amongst the poor and the elite, his friends anticipated a huge turnout. They kept Bishop's body in the Municipal Hall at Panjim for the people to pay their last respects. His close friends and well-wishers were astonished at the response from the public. In the history of Goa, up to that point, this was the largest attended funeral that had ever taken place. It took 9 turns by people from 9 different social classes to carry the coffin from the municipal hall to the cemetery. It's a known fact that detractors as well as well-wishers both were a part of the final adieu to the son of the soil. To the end, even his last wishes of being buried as per the final rites of the Orthodox Church remained unfulfilled. Instead, Bishop Alvarez was buried in an isolated part reserved for the outcast in the Municipal Cemetery, where he lay forgotten for years. A new era had dawned.
Portuguese colony of Goa in 1955, Prime Minister Nehru said, "We rule out non-peaceful methods entirely." In 1961, 30,000 Indian troops poured over the border into the enclave to conquer it within 48 hours. Goa, along with the adjacent enclaves of Damao and Diu, had been colonized.
And now for an astonishing turn of events which would ultimately help restore Bishop Alvares Mar Julius' works of life.
1962 ലിബറേഷന് ശേഷം നമ്മുടെ ആളുകളൊക്കെ ഗോവയിൽ വന്നുവെങ്കിലും നമുക്കവിടെ ഒരു സർവീസോ ആരാധനാ സൗകര്യങ്ങളോ ഇല്ലായിരുന്നു. ആ സമയത്ത് 67 ജനുവരിയിൽ അന്നത്തെ ബാഹ്യർമദ്രാസിലെ മെത്രാപ്പൊലീത്തായ മാത്യൂസ് മാർ അത്താനോസ് തിരുമേനി, he became afterwards the Catholicos Basilius Martha Matthews first, visited Brahmawar churches. And after the visit in Brahmawar church, Tirumeni came to Goa. And on a Sunday, and we have celebrated Tirumeni has celebrated the Holy Kurbana there in St. Denis Church. And I consider that getting that permission in St. Denis Church was a divine guidance there. Because usually the other denomination people were given the permission to conduct their services at Medical College Chapel or Post Office Chapel, somewhere like that. And this was, at that time it was the outer skirt of the city, even though that was the place we got. And for people it was inconvenient, but still we have taken it and we have gone there. And after the service, Tirumeni paid a casual visit to the vicar of that Catholic parish in the St. Denis Church parsonage. And in the casual conversation between Tirumeni and the vicar, Tirumeni mentioned about Alvares Tirumeni. And Tirumeni said, we had a metropolitan from Goa, his name was Alvares Mar Julius. But we do not know what happened to him later. Then this vicar of that parish led Tirumeni to the adjacent cemetery, where the corner of the cemetery that was set apart for that time for the people who were excommunicated from church. There the cholera which was situated in that corner was shown to Tirumeni. And thus we came to know that Alvares Tirumeni is buried there in that cemetery.
The news spread amongst the faithful, and the community had now the opportunity to pay tribute to the much-loved Bishop Alvares Mar Julius. They decided to build a church and enshrine his holy relics in that church.
Municipal Mayor Francis Alleluia Menesis, അദ്ദേഹം അതിനുവേണ്ടി പ്രത്യേകമായ ഇനീഷ്യേറ്റീവ് എടുത്തുകൊണ്ട് കൗൺസിലിൻ്റെ ഒരു തീരുമാനപ്രകാരം ഈ റിലക്സ് മാറ്റുന്നതിനായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു അനുവാദം നമുക്ക് തന്നു. അപ്പോൾ അന്നത്തെ ഭദ്രാസന മെത്രാപ്പൊലീത്തായിട്ട് 1979 ചാർജ് എടുത്ത തേഫിലോസ് തിരുമേനി ആദ്യമായിട്ട് ഗോവയെ വിസിറ്റ് ചെയ്യുകയുമാണ്. പരിശുദ്ധ ബാബാതിരുമേനിയുടെ കൽപ്പനയിൽ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു, അത് കിട്ടുന്നത് എന്താണെന്ന് നമുക്ക് അറിയാൻ പാടില്ലാത്തതുകൊണ്ട് ഒന്നുമില്ലെങ്കിൽ മണ്ണെങ്കിലും അതിൽ നിന്നുള്ളത് വായിക്കൊണ്ട് പോരുക എന്ന്. അതിനുവേണ്ടി അതുപോലെ ഒരു ചെറിയ അംശം ബ്രഹ്മവാർ ചർച്ചിന് കൊടുക്കണമെന്ന് ആവശ്യപ്പെട്ടിരുന്നു. അതിനുവേണ്ടി 2 പെട്ടികൾ തടി കൊണ്ടുള്ളത് ഉണ്ടാക്കി. കല്ലറ തുറന്നപ്പോൾ അത്ഭുതകരമായിട്ട് തോന്നിയത്, തുറന്നു കഴിഞ്ഞ ഉടനെ അതിൻ്റെ ഏറ്റവും മുകളിൽ 1 ഇഞ്ച് ഈ ലൈം വാട്ടർ ഇട്ട് നിറച്ചിരുന്നത് മാറ്റിക്കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ ഈ ഒരു ലെഡ് ബോക്സിൽ തിരുമേനിയുടെ മുഴുവൻ അസ്ഥികളും ഒരെണ്ണം പോലും കേടില്ലാതെ, നമ്മൾ സങ്കീർത്തനത്തിൽ വായിക്കുന്ന പോലെ അസ്ഥികൾക്ക് ദ്രവത്വമില്ല എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിരുന്ന പോലെ ഒരസ്ഥി പോലും ദ്രവിക്കാതെ മുഴുവനും അസ്ഥികളും കൂടെ ഉള്ള കളക്ഷൻ അതങ്ങനെ കിട്ടുകയാണുണ്ടായത്.
By 1892, the relics were respectfully moved to their final resting place at the St. Mary's Orthodox Syrian Church in Ribanda. The faithful had a sacred place where they could pay homage to their beloved saint, Bishop Alvares Mar Julius. Restored to his true glory and in celebration of his saintly life, Bishop's mortal remains lie at this church till date. Bishop Alvares Mar Julius will never be forgotten and will always remain a saint.
ഒരു രത്നം എത്ര ആഴത്തിൽ കുഴിച്ചിട്ടാലും ആ രത്നം തന്നെയാണ്. അത് നമുക്ക് അത് കണ്ടെത്തി അതിനെ ഉപയോഗിക്കാൻ സാധിച്ചില്ല എന്നുള്ളത് നമ്മുടെ കുറവുമായിട്ടായിട്ട് തന്നെ കാണാനൊക്കുള്ളൂ. അതിന് വേരിയസ് റീസൺസ് ഉണ്ടാകും. അതേ സമയം കൊണ്ട് നമുക്ക് ഇപ്പം ഈ രത്നം അവിടെ കിടക്കും, ഈ ലോകം വരെ ഏറ്റവും ആരതിൻ്റെ മുകളിൽ എന്ത് ചണ്ടും ചവറും പിന്നെ മണ്ണും വാരിട്ടാലൊന്നും ഇത് ഈ വിശുദ്ധി എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് അതിൻ്റെ മേളിലെ മാലിന്യങ്ങൾക്ക് മൂടാമെന്നല്ലാതെ വിശുദ്ധിയെ അശുദ്ധി കൊണ്ട് നശിപ്പിക്കാനാണ്. പീഡനങ്ങൾ ഏറ്റുവാങ്ങി ദൈവസന്നിധിയിലേക്ക് കടന്നു പോയിട്ടുള്ള ആ പരിശുദ്ധ പിതാവിനെ സഭയുടെ മുൻപാകെയും സമൂഹത്തിൻ്റെ മുൻപാകെയും വെളിപ്പെടുത്തുവാൻ തക്കവണ്ണമുള്ള പ്രയത്നം തീർച്ചയായും അനുഗ്രഹകരമാണ്. തിരുവെഴുത്തുകളിൽ കാണുന്നൊരു വാചകം ഇപ്രകാരമുണ്ട്: ഒരു നീതിമാനെ നീതിമാൻ എന്ന് കരുതി നാം പ്രവർത്തിച്ച നീതിമാന്റെ പ്രതിഫലം പ്രവർത്തിക്കുന്നവർക്ക് ലഭിക്കുമെന്ന് കർത്താവ് അറിയിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നു.
Every day, morning and evening, when I say prayer, what you call Thanksgiving, at that time one of my prayers is, I pray to the Lord. I say, Venerable Mar Julius Bishop Alvares, to please intercede for me and my wife, seek pardon for our sins, and grant us good health.
Alvares Mar Julius തിരുമേനിയുടെ ജീവിതത്തിലെ അഭിലാഷമായിരുന്നു മലങ്കരയിൽ നിന്ന് ഒരു വൈദികനോ ഒരു മെത്രാനോ വന്ന് തന്നെ അവസാന കാലത്ത് തന്നെ ശുശ്രൂഷിക്കണമെന്നും അതിലുപരിയായിട്ട് അങ്ങനെ ഒരു സാഹചര്യം ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ മാത്രം എൻ്റെ ശവസംസ്കാരം നടത്തിയാൽ മതിയെന്നും അദ്ദേഹം ആഗ്രഹിച്ചു. ദൈവഹിതം എന്നോണം ഒരു വൈദികനോ ഒരു മേൽപ്പെട്ടക്കാരനോ ഇതുവരെ ലഭിച്ചിട്ടില്ലാത്ത ഒരു ശവസംസ്കാരം. അത് മറ്റൊന്നുമല്ല, സാധാരണ ജനങ്ങൾ അദ്ദേഹത്തെ സംസ്കരിച്ചു. മലങ്കരയിൽ അൽവാരീസ് മാർ യൂലിയോസ് തിരുമേനിയെ ജീവിക്കുന്ന പരിശുദ്ധനായി ഇന്ന് ജനം കാണുന്നു. ആ പരിശുദ്ധൻ്റെ മധ്യസ്ഥതയിൽ അഭയം പ്രാപിക്കുന്നു. ഈ തലമുറയിൽ, വരാനുള്ള തലമുറയിൽ ഈ യാഥാർത്ഥ്യം തിരിച്ചറിഞ്ഞ് വിശുദ്ധിയോടുകൂടി അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ മധ്യസ്ഥയിൽ അഭയം പ്രാപിക്കുവാൻ ദൈവം സംഗതിയാകട്ടെ എന്ന് പ്രാർത്ഥിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് നിർത്തുന്നു. നന്ദി.